Mazda have all been made in Zimbabwe, and this kind of forms a little bit of the history of why people talk about these brands and why they're regarded so highly, especially the older ones. So it's not just the passenger vehicles. Willowville Motors also used to make commercial vehicles. The very popular Nissan and the UD brand, Scania, Renault, Bedford, which was a very big name in the commercial vehicle spheres. Mazdas themselves, the BT50s or the LCVs or light commercial vehicles. Then we also have more recently Bayek. I always struggle with the pronunciation of that name. Great Tiger. And these are all vehicles that have come through the ranks of Willowville Motor Industries. And it forms that history of the Zimbabwean motoring culture of old and those brands that everyone loves and grew up with. Leylands, the UDs, the Toyotas, the Peugeots, the Citroens. I think when I think back, I think about the 405s, the 504s, the 305s, the 406s. These are all assembled in Zimbabwe at some point. And you see them, quite a few of them still on the roads. And they still hold a very high pedigree in terms of what people think about them.
So when you think about Willowville, when you think about Quest, do you think we as a country, Taf, do actually have the horsepower to become a powerhouse within Southern Africa as far as car manufacturing is concerned? I know South Africa is really doing big there, especially in terms of VW, BMW. But for Zim, where do you think we have it?
I think we do. If you look at the position of Zimbabwe relative to maybe if we look at the Southern African countries or SADC region countries, we are kind of in the middle. So we can kind of be that hub that then puts these things together and then distributes it to the wider region. So that puts us in a very interesting position. To back that up as well, if you look at what we have in terms of your mineral resources, your lithium, which is all the talk right now about EVs and HEVs, we have plenty of that, and I think it's been well documented about how it's being mined. And if we can value add to that, we can actually be the distribution hub to either products we assemble here or products that are being assembled in the region, which we can feed with these materials. And it's all about adding value at each stage of the way. And I think Zimbabwe is primed to be in a very good position for that. And also a very good point if all these international brands, even regional brands, or even our own domesticated brands come to reality and we start to be made here. It'll push things out quite far.
I love that. Capital 100.4 FM, Harare is our beat. In what ways do you think we certainly can have Zim taking back our footing in the motoring industry? Would love to hear from you. 0719 100 404. So that's us looking at industry news. Let's take a look at what's happening in the tech world, Tap.
Yeah, so the tech world is also very interesting right now. It all comes down to road safety. We've talked about your driver assistance mode, and they've all gone a little bit advanced. In fact, the name itself is now called Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, and it's all about safety. Cars are getting smarter, therefore cars are driving much faster. Last week we talked about supercars being manufactured and Aston Martin having one. We're always talking about, oh, there's this performance car that pushes out these figures, this kind of horsepower, this kind of torque. But this is all creating a sense of cars going faster. In fact, the trend is cars are becoming faster. And they're trying to leverage on efficiencies on other things in terms of the infrastructure that they move on. That's the roads, the networks that control them. That's your maybe your autonomous driving modes in some of the vehicles that are being created now. And safety is now paramount because, cars can go faster, they can get smarter, but it means nothing if they're not safe. So all the technology right now is hinged towards better enhancements in driver and occupant safety. We're talking about autonomous systems becoming better. Cars essentially trying to make very minute decisions by themselves, but all of the points to keep you safe. We're seeing features where cars now actually monitor driver behavior and passenger behavior and act accordingly. For example, they can stop themselves now. They can refuse to start. They can actually limit their power output based on profiles you can create for children if they're going to be driving the car. Or if they see that, this person may be a bit tired, they can react accordingly. So technology in the motor sphere is 100% going towards safety. But also scarily, or some people may think it's scary, they're also becoming more and more autonomous because at some point we're going to be kicked off out of the driving seat and fairly into the passenger seats, and these cars will make all the decisions for us. But they must do it safely first.
Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. Welcome to Under the Hood every single Thursday. The crunch takes you on a little bit of a car journey, specifically if you are a car enthusiast. We started off just discussing our automotive industry as a country, and now we were talking about some tech advancements that have come into the car industry. But I want us to slide back, Taf, a little bit to what we were talking about around the automotive industry. You're talking about bike. You're talking about the potential resurrection of car manufacturers that we used to know. Now, you work for Zimoco and you do not manufacture cars. I'm wondering, for you, do you think if we were to start remanufacturing cars here, what that would do for you as a company or companies that are specializing in selling even brand new vehicles versus locally manufacturing them?
Yeah, good question. And I think it's a positive thing, especially for companies like ourselves. Maybe, like you rightfully said, we don't produce vehicles, but we do sell a finished product that's come from somewhere in the world. Now, let's assume that that product is actually made in Zimbabwe, or part of that product is made in Zimbabwe. The biggest advantage to us as a company who then resells the finished good is that the cost of this thing might actually become much, much cheaper and more affordable to a wider market. A company exists for one thing, to make a profit. So something that helps us to increase our bank balance, if you want to call it that, is a good thing for us, because we are essentially, if products or part of a product we sell in the form of a vehicle are made locally, we assume that the cost of these things will become cheaper, making the end product more accessible to more people, which means it's good news for us. We get higher volumes of sales from our side.
So we have the motor industry development policy as a country. We launched this a few years ago, and we wanted to be, up to 2030, looking at how our country can increase our capacity to make sure that we are using local car assemblers to have, whether it's just, purely maybe just participation at about 10% or to a full 100% of local assembly point. Really, it doesn't matter. What the idea is, let's encourage local assembly happening in our country, right? That's fine. So for this to happen, I think you're also highlighting some of the steps the government has to take and some of the advantages we already have in terms of lithium. But now most of us find comfort in driving second-hand cars. Do you think there is more that needs to be done by our government, for example, to then detract us, if I can use that word loosely here, from buying second-hand cars, but also to then focus on looking inward, buying, because if it's also locally assembled, it's also brand new. It's no longer us focusing on the influx of second-hand vehicles.
Yeah, so I think that is actually a very interesting space that we hope that the governing forces and policies and all that go towards a stage where we find the importation of second-hand goods second-hand vehicles rather, starts to reduce in favor, if everything goes well, to locally produced motor vehicles. Now, second-hand vehicles are not a bad thing at all. In fact, they've provided an affordable means of transportation for the vast majority of people. New vehicles, by their very nature, will cost more. And unfortunately, it locks out a certain segment or a large portion of the market, which is the gap that second-hand vehicles have filled. So if certain certain things can be placed from a government level, from a procedural level, from policy level, where we have maybe say vehicles being produced as new, using maybe techniques like your knockdown kits, where things are actually come as a flat pack and it's assembled locally, it goes to the point I brought out before that a new vehicle becomes cheaper. Tie that together with the fact if maybe access to financing is made available, or there's some incentives put in place to encourage finance houses and banks to then give out loans, which will make the cheaper new good become more accessible to more people, then you find that people's minds will shift towards buying second-hand. Second-hand vehicles, like I said, are good, but they come with their own inherent problems. A second-hand good is a second-hand good. You do not know its history. Is it a good history? Is it a bad history? In some cases, it is a bit of a gamble when you buy one, and then it becomes an expensive gamble, in that it might take a lot to maybe maintain this car to keep on the road. Secondly, if you look at environmental forces, which is a topic which is very big in the motor industry,
right?
They contribute a bit more in terms of your CO2 emissions, into the environment, which is probably a lot more than what new cars bring. So there's also that incentive there. But if if there's incentives put forward that encourage the manufacture, flat packs, or maybe even components of these vehicles, so that they're put together from here, it'll make it cheaper. And I think ultimately it's good, not just for us as a country, but also for the market as well.
So I know you listening in are probably driving a foreign brand car. So it could be from Japan, it could be from Germany, it could very well be from Italy. Maybe it's American. How do you feel about driving an African brand versus any of the above that I've mentioned? So we actually have quite a few Zimbabweans who have ventured to go and set up car brands. Actually, one that's registered in Zimbabwe, another one in South Africa, and they actually intend to assemble their vehicles. Willowvale, as a joint venture with, I think there's also a group in Iran as well, so that they can be supplying the components for them to set up this plant. Now, as you're listening in, what is the probability of you driving a Zimbabwean brand car? Be honest. And what would make you buy a Zimbabwean or an African brand versus a German or a Japanese one? Let's take this a step further. Can you actually name any African car brands as you're listening in? 0719100401. Give us one African car brand. Recently, we saw a Zimbabwean who is said to have innovated car technology. And boy, oh boy, that did not go very well for one reason or another. What is it that will make you and I want to buy a Zimbabwean brand or an African brand? I'm checking with you, 0719100404. So I'm curious, how do you think the market would respond to that type?
To a locally built car, I think
not locally built car.
Zimbabwean.
Yes, a Zimbabwean car. Or even an African. How many African car brands do you know?
Let's localize it. Let's make it a Zimbabwean car.
Okay.
We did talk about this group that's actually have plans to put this in place. So a Zimbabwean car is, let's say, in the works. I think the market reacts just like any other market for any other product. The proof is in how good the actual product will be. So to cement this vehicle being made, it has to go through some kind of test or trust building phase. And generally that would mean that maybe we want something from like a government level, a certain portion of their fleet to actually adopt this vehicle.
So it's leading by example.
Exactly, and it does a lot of things. One, government is the biggest purchaser of vehicles in the country. No individual or company can out-purchase them. And they need requirement is such that they have to become that volume purchaser. So if they assign, say, a local brand's vehicle to a fleet of whatever department they decide to try it on, it does one thing. It helps this company actually maybe meet its minimum manufacturing requirements or to keep the lights on the factory. It gets the cars onto the road and seen by the public eye. And it gets to see how they fare in terms of the longevity, reliability when they're being used. And I think as more and more of this product starts to be seen, people start to become warmer to the idea of actually, because buying anything is a calculated risk, like it or not, that's what it is. And it's trust. And that's why we buy products. We buy it because of trust. We trust that this product will do what they promised to deliver. So if we see more of them on the roads, on fleets, around us, the more it becomes popular, people will start to become trust in it and actually purchase it. And then we start to hope that that tide gets bigger and bigger.
So Taf has given us one reason or one way to inspire you and I to want to drive a Zimbabwean car brand, right? But for you, as you're listening in, what would make you want to pick a Zimbabwean brand over a German or Japanese, Italian, or any other car brand out there? 0719100404. And when you think, for me, when I think Italian brands, I think detail, I think luxury, I think speed, I think premium, right? When I think a German car, I think good engine, good engineering, I think sometimes performance and longevity. When I think a Japanese brand, I think affordable, I think durable, I think cost effective. Now, if we were then to say Zimbabwean car brand, what sort of things do you think our cars could very well be identified for? 0719100404. I'm going to say something that sounds very silly, but I'm going to say it nonetheless. You know how in our African culture we believe like that is possible, it's something we've heard. Can I just leave it there and say, imagine if we could transcend that into our engineering? I know that sounds absurd, but I'm genuinely curious what that would look like. So let us know on 0719 100 Also, we're not the only ones that are turning 45.
No, we're not. So I guess, if you want to call it a celebration of our age, there is also another car turning 45. And I thought it was quite fitting to talk about it, Zimbabwe turning 45.
Okay, so maybe without you telling us what it is, do you just want to give us clues, and then we can see if we can guess which 45-year-old is also celebrating with us?
It's a tricky one, because the name of it will completely give the brand away. You cannot
Don't give us the name.
It's a hard one to talk about without actually giving the name, because the actual technology of this in this vehicle is what is supreme, and is why it makes it very noteworthy. So a very tricky one, but I will definitely want to talk about our car icon of the year, of the day rather. And that one I can definitely give people clues on.
Okay.
It's an interesting car. It's an old car as well, but one I think people will find. I'm hoping to make it a bit difficult. It's very obvious, but I'll try to make it as difficult as possible.
Go for it.
So this car icon for the week is a very beloved car. It was made from 1938 all the way up to 2003. So iconic in every sense of the word. And the clues for this vehicle go like this. It was developed during pre-World War II in Germany. It used a torsion bar suspension for a very comfortable ride, which was very ahead of its time at the time. It's used in a very popular movie, Herbie, The Love Bug, and was the main feature vehicle in that vehicle. It had a flat 4 boxer being the clue, because that was a very popular term used for its engine. And its official name was the Volkswagen Type 1 when it was first launched.
All right, 0719 100 Quite a few clues that Taf has given us about the car icon of the day. There is another car that's also celebrating 45 years with us. I was challenging him to see if you as a gearhead can guess which car that is. I will try to give you clues. Let's see if you can piece which car that is. All coming up here on Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Habit. So we've done industry. We've had a look at tech news. Anything else that's been happening in our car industry, Taf, that you want to throw at us?
No, I think right now with the Easter and Independence holiday coming up, definitely, motoring and transport are such a big issue. Coming down to the station today, I can tell you without any doubt that there's more cars on the road today. You can definitely feel it. You can feel the congestion, the delays, and everything else that comes with increased cars on the road. So, safety and mindfulness on the road now becomes an issue over the next several days as people plan to travel, to go up and down the country. So my big say will be, people, let's keep it safe on the roads. Let's be courteous to each other. Let's look at the condition of our vehicles, because there's no point trying to go there if you know you can't get there. Let's look at it now before the holiday ensues. But also, if problems do arise, always consider getting those checked as soon as you come back for your holiday. So car care is very crucial.
Yeah. 0719 100 Can you guess what the car is, the car icon? And I'm also going to be throwing clues at you, looking at which car is also celebrating 45 years. We were talking about developments in the car industry and the plans that we as a country have. One of the key things to underline with our plans as a country towards resuscitating our car industry is the fact that we want to see Zimbabwe assembling vehicles here, but also supply them within the region because of the African Continental Free Trade Area. I'm sure you've heard about that. If AFTA is very successful, it becomes the biggest single trade market in the entire world. Now, my question to you is, do you think we as Zimbabwe, in fact, how do you think we as Zimbabwe could actually realistically compete with countries like South Africa or even Morocco in terms of, being able to export locally assembled cars? And if you were to buy a Zimbabwean car, in other words, a Zimbabwean brand car, what sort of things do you think our brand should be identified with? What sort of things will make you buy that car? 0719 100 What would make us ready to play at that level playing field? Or is it something you think is unimaginable? Let me know. Which car is also turning 45 years this year, just like you and I as a country. So let me see if I can throw some clues at you, and you get to come through 0719 100 404. Figure out which car it is, but also Taf has already given us clues to the car icon and gave us quite some, I think, almost obvious clues there. Let's see if you can figure that one out. So one of my first clues about the car that's turning 45 years today is it first made appearance in Geneva at the Motor Show in 1980. It was the first high-performance production car with a permanent all-wheel drive. I was about to...
You're about to give it away. You see?
Yes,
it's difficult,
yes,
eh?
Yes, I was...
You're about to give it away.
Really... All right. It had a 2-liter turbocharged 5-cylinder engine, making around, like, what, 200 horsepower?
About 200 horsepower, yes, which is quite big for the time.
It also helped a woman make history in 1981.
Yes, she was the first woman to win the WRC event, the World Rally Championship.
And the last clue I'm going to give you, that its name later became almost synonymous with the entire AWD philosophy. Any idea which car this is? 0719 104. Let's hear the gearheads who know their cars. A 1980 legendary machine is also celebrating 45 years today. Can you tell which one that was? Holiday season is about us, and safety tap is something that's so important around this time.
Correct. And safety doesn't just mean about driving well. It means taking care of the people inside the vehicle as well. So as we travel long trips, keeping everyone comfortable in the vehicle makes the trip very much more bearable. It makes it much more shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, safety in mind.
Mm-hmm.
We must say that seatbelts are very important in a vehicle, not just for the driver and the front driver. Occupants in the rear must also wear their seatbelt if they are available in the car. It is not just a big safety thumbs up, it's also the law.
All right. And as we're getting close to the end of our show for today, what's our highway code question? As I'm seeing a couple of interesting answers that have come in, particularly to the car that's turning 45 years. Still, do you want to give us another set of clues for your car? Guess the car
Sure,
icon
I
of
can
the day.
do that.
Sure.
No problem at all. So the set of clues for the car icon of the week is this, and I'm giving it away at this stage. This car was designed and influenced by Ferdinand Porsche. The engine was situated in the back, where you'd normally expect to find the boot of the car. And it was originally conceived as the people's car. No pun there, Volkswagen, just like the name suggests.
So we're still guessing what the car is.
Still guessing what the car is.
All right.
Those clues.
So interesting set of clues there, because it's almost going to sound confusing, right? To figure out which one it is. But let's see from our listener. But I was just thinking, most of the cars that we drive, some of them are names of people, right?
Correct.
And I'm just thinking if it was a Zimbabwean car brand, right? So Jose, Chashaya Motors. I bought a Chashaya.
Yeah.
Nyabuta. It's a Nyabuta pickup.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine what that would be like if we were to develop a Zimbabwean car brand. What kind of name do you think would work very well for a Zimbabwean brand name? 0719 100 404.
And one of the things I'll say, if you are thinking of a car brand that's synonymous with Zimbabwe or a name for one, I would say take a leaf from our good friends the Chinese, who have had a bad history of giving cars names, and they've taken into abbreviations and things of that nature.
Like Lexus. And that works.
Oh yeah, it works. You can't call your car build your dreams.
Yeah,
BYD sounds much better.
does it? Yes.
An Aura Fat Cat doesn't sound nice, but an Aura 3 sounds nice.
I don't even think they call it Fat Cat. I think they actually used a much stronger word than Fat Cat, wasn't it?
Oh, there was a Black Cat, there was a White Cat.
Yeah.
These are all official names. And Xiaomi as well is also got a very difficult name in terms of the model.
The spelling just gives us headaches.
So they gave it Echelon SU6, SU7s, just to make things a little bit easier. So I'll say, if you're going to do the same thing to make it globally accessible, globally palatable.
Listen, if we figured out how to say Peugeot, Porsche, Volkswagen, why would we struggle to say Chashaya or
And
Adamombe or whatever needs to be
I
said.
can tell you now with 100% certainty, we are not pronouncing all of those brands correctly.
I'm sure we're not, but it gets the job done, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it gets the job done. It's also actually Peugeot, and that works.
Yeah, Peugeot.
It's perfect for us, right?
Works in our context.
Yeah, so as you're listening in, as we're about to go to the news, which car names would you like to see from a Zimbabwean brand? Like, that would make you feel like I could drive a Jashaya or something. Like, I'm just curious what that would like. I would drive a Gokwe. I don't know. 0719 100 404. What would make you drive that? Marshall, how are you in Aspendale? Marshall, and 8043. Good morning. All right, so we've got quite a few attempts to figuring out what our car icon of the day. The first answer says it was a VW, the one which had no radiator. Marshall, Marshall, you were not specific which car icon you're talking about. You gave two. You gave one, but we have two. One that's only 45 today, and then one that's the car icon of the week. And Avon, I think that's your name, says the car icon is a VW Beetle.
Are we saying it, or still letting
we've got 2 minutes, so I think you definitely can go in there.
No, well done to them. It is the original VW Beetle from 1938. Otherwise known as the original people's car.
Not only that, he also went and guesstimated what car is turning 45 along us as a country this morning, and I'm afraid to say he's on the money. So Taf, tell us, which car are we celebrating 45 years today?
The Audi Quattro, or otherwise known as the O Quattro, was the very first car to implement a four-wheel drive system in a high-performance vehicle, which paved the way for a lot of other innovations in four-wheel drive vehicles, performance vehicles that use an all-wheel drive configuration, and is still very iconic for that very similar fact.
Surely, if we can do Kutoro for a car, then
it's Quattro.
Listen, that's what I thought it was.
It's Quattro.
That's what, but I don't see why we can't have any. So congratulations to you, Ashvan. You also got that right. He says, Folake, it must be an Audi Quattro. You are absolutely right. Taf, give us our safety tip for the day as we're shutting down, making way for Precious, who's going to be coming in on the bus.
No problem at all. Wear all your seatbelts, keep to the posted speed limits, and drive with courtesy.
And as we are celebrating our 45 years as an independent state, remember the 5 fingers we were talking about earlier, the pillars that are taking us towards the future we want to be as a Zimbabwean. As from Marshall listening into Aspendale, whether you're in business, Ashvan, whoever you are a part of the legacy we're trying to build. And that's what tomorrow is about. Happy holidays. You and I will touch base again tomorrow. It's 12 o'clock. Precious is all yours. Bye, Taf.
Bye. Hi.